The unlikely hero. The incessant beeping of malfunctioning equipment echoed through the dingy maintenance bay of Outpost Zeta 9. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow, leaving a streak of grease across his forehead. He'd been elbow-deep in the guts of a temperamental air recycler for the past 6 hours, and the damned thing still refused to cooperate. "Come on, you piece of junk," he muttered, giving the stubborn component a none-too-gentle whack with his wrench. To his surprise, the beeping stopped, replaced by the low hum of proper functioning. Jack allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. It wasn't glamorous work, but someone had to keep this rusty tin can in the sky. As the only human mechanic on a remote space station staffed primarily by various alien species, Jack was used to being overlooked. He blended into the background, just another cog in the vast machinery of the galactic community, and that suited him just fine. Jack had left Earth years ago, seeking the anonymity of the Outer Rim. Out here, no one cared about your past or your species, as long as you could do your job. The sudden blaring of alarms shattered Jack's contemplative moment. Red emergency lights bathed the maintenance bay in an eerie glow. Jack frowned. This wasn't a scheduled drill, and genuine emergencies were rare on sleepy Zeta 9. He grabbed his toolkit and sprinted towards the source of the commotion. As he rounded a corner, Jack collided with something solid, sending him sprawling to the floor. He looked up, ready to unleash a string of colorful curses, but the words died in his throat. Standing before him was the most breathtaking alien he'd ever seen. Her skin was a shimmering, iridescent blue that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. Flowing silver hair cascaded down her back, and her eyes, all 4 of them, were a deep, mesmerizing purple. She wore an ornate gown that had clearly seen better days, now torn and singed in places. "Please," the alien woman gasped, her melodic voice tinged with desperation. "You must help us." It was only then that Jack noticed the small figure clutching the woman's hand. A child, no more than 5 or 6 by human standards, with the same blue skin and silver hair as her mother. The girl's eyes were wide with terror. Before Jack could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps and angry shouts echoed down the corridor. The woman's head whipped around, her expression one of pure panic. "They're coming," she whispered. "Please, I beg you, hide us." Jack's mind raced. Every instinct told him to walk away, to not get involved. But something in the woman's pleading eyes and the child's frightened whimper struck a chord deep within him. With a resigned sigh, he made a decision that would change the course of his life forever. "Quick," he hissed, gesturing towards a nearby maintenance hatch. "In here." He helped the woman and child squeeze into the cramped access tunnel, then sealed the hatch behind them. Moments later, a group of heavily armed aliens rounded the corner. Their metallic exoskeletons gleamed menacingly in the red emergency lighting. "You there, human," the lead alien barked, its voice a grating, mechanical rasp. "Have you seen a cerulean female and her offspring pass this way?" Jack forced his features into a mask of confused innocence. "Sorry, boss," he drawled, adopting his thickest Earth accent. "Ain't seen nobody 'cept you fine gentlemen. Something wrong with the station?" The alien's compound eyes narrowed suspiciously. "This is an imperial matter. Do not interfere." With that, the group moved on, their heavy footsteps fading into the distance. Jack waited several tense minutes before reopening the maintenance hatch. The woman emerged gracefully, though her eyes darted nervously in all directions. The child clung to her mother's leg, regarding Jack with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Thank you," the woman said, bowing her head slightly. "I am in your debt." Jack scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "Don't mention it. Name's Jack, by the way. You want to tell me what that was all about?" The woman hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. "I am Princess Zara of the Cerulean Imperium. This is my daughter, Lyra." The child gave a tiny wave. "We are refugees of a sort. Those men wish to return us to a situation that would be unpleasant for us both." Jack whistled low. "Princess, huh? Well, Your Highness, I hate to break it to you, but this station ain't exactly the safest hiding spot. Those goons'll tear this place apart looking for you. Zora's shoulders slumped. I know. We had hoped to secure passage on a transport, but our pursuers were faster than anticipated. I don't know what to do. Jack found himself speaking before he could think better of it. I might know a guy. Owes me a favor. Might be able to get you off station, at least until things cool down. Hope blossomed in Zara's eyes. Truly? You would do this for us? Jack shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. Yeah, well, can't have a couple of ladies in distress on my conscience, can I? He knelt down to Lyra's level. What do you say, kiddo? Up for an adventure? To his surprise, the girl giggled and nodded enthusiastically. Right then, Jack said, straightening up. Follow me, and try to look inconspicuous. Which, might be a bit tricky for a couple of glowing blue aliens, but we'll manage. As they made their way through the winding corridors of Zeta 9, Jack's mind raced. He was way out of his depth here, harboring alien royalty from what were likely Imperial forces. If caught, he'd face charges of treason at best, summary execution at worst. Yet something about Zora's quiet dignity and Lyra's innocent trust compelled him forward. They reached a small, unmarked hangar bay. Jack punched in an access code, revealing a battered but serviceable shuttle. She ain't pretty, Jack said, patting the ship's hull fondly, but she'll get you where you need to go. Mostly. Zora's eyes widened. You're giving us your ship. Jack grinned. Nope. I'm coming with you. Before Zara could protest, alarms blared once more. The station's automated voice crackled over the intercom. Attention all personnel. Lockdown protocols initiated. No unauthorized departures permitted. Well, that complicates things, Jack muttered. He turned to Zara and Lyra. Last chance to back out, ladies. Once we're in that ship, there's no turning back. Zara squared her shoulders, a spark of royal determination in her eyes. We have no choice. Lead on, Jack of Earth. As they boarded the shuttle, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was leaving behind more than just a dead-end job on a forgotten outpost. For better or worse, his quiet life of anonymity was over. A new chapter was beginning, one filled with danger, intrigue, and the nagging suspicion that he was in way over his head. The shuttle's engines rolled to life as Jack's fingers danced over the controls. Outside, the hangar bay doors remained stubbornly shut. Hang on tight, he called over his shoulder. This is gonna get a little messy. With a silent prayer to whatever deities might be listening, Jack punched the throttle. The shuttle surged forward, aimed directly at the closed hangar doors. Are you insane? Zara cried, clutching Lyra close. Jack's only response was a wild grin as the ship barreled towards what looked like certain destruction. At the last possible second, he fired the shuttle's forward cannons. The hangar doors exploded outward in a shower of debris and escaping atmosphere. They burst into the star-studded void of space, alarms blaring in their wake. Jack's hands flew over the controls, pushing the little ship to its limits as they rocketed away from Zeta 9. I can't believe that worked, he muttered, more to himself than his passengers. Zara, looking slightly pale, or whatever passed for pale among ceruleans, managed a shaky smile. It seems I chose my protector wisely. Where do we go from here? Jack punched in a series of coordinates. I know a place. It's not much, but it'll keep us off the radar for a while. He glanced back at Zara and Lyra, his expression growing serious. Look, I don't know what kind of trouble you're running from, but I get the feeling it's not going to be easy to shake. You sure you want to drag me into this? Zara met his gaze, her 4 eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and determination. I wish I could say no, that we could handle this alone. But the truth is, we need you, Jack. More than you know. She hesitated, then added softly, I'll understand if you wish to leave us once we reach safety. Jack turned back to the controls, a strange warmth spreading through his chest. Nah, he said, trying to sound casual. In for a penny, in for a pound, as we used to say back on Earth. Besides, he added with a roguish wink, someone's got to keep you royal types out of trouble. As the stars streaked by outside the view screen, Jack couldn't help but wonder what he'd gotten himself into. But looking at Zara's grateful smile and Lyra's wide-eyed excitement, he found he didn't much care. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive. Little did Jack know, this was only the beginning of an adventure that would reshape the very fabric of the galaxy, and his own destiny along with it. A daring escape. The rickety shuttle shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, the swirling blue vortex collapsing into a sea of unfamiliar stars. Jack's hands danced across the controls, coaxing every ounce of power from the ship's straining engines. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking," he quipped, trying to mask his own tension. "Welcome to the middle of absolutely nowhere. Population, us, and hopefully no one else." Zara leaned forward, her iridescent skin reflecting the glow of the instrument panel. "Are you certain we weren't followed?" Jack shrugged. "As certain as I can be when flying a ship held together with spit and prayers. But don't worry, Your Highness. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve." As if on cue, proximity alarms blared to life. A massive warship materialized from the inky blackness of space, its sleek, predatory lines unmistakably imperial. "You were saying?" Zara's voice was tight with fear. "Okay, slight change of plans," Jack muttered, his mind racing. "Hold on to something." He yanked the controls hard, sending the shuttle into a wild spiral. The sudden maneuver threw Zara and Lyra against their restraints, the little girl letting out a mixture of a scream and a giggle. "Sorry about that," Jack called over his shoulder. "Forgot to mention I'm not exactly a licensed pilot." "What?" Zara's exclamation was cut short as Jack executed another bone-jarring turn, narrowly avoiding a volley of energy blasts from the pursuing warship. "Relax, princess," Jack grinned, a manic glint in his eye. "I've played plenty of flight simulator games. It's practically the same thing." Before Zara could voice her undoubtedly colorful opinion on that statement, Jack spotted their salvation, a dense asteroid field looming ahead. "Time to get creative," he muttered, plunging the shuttle into the chaotic swarm of space rocks. What followed was a hair-raising dance of death. Jack weaved the shuttle through gaps barely wider than the ship itself, relying on instinct and a healthy dose of luck. The Imperial warship, too large and cumbersome for such acrobatics, was forced to hang back, peppering the asteroids with ineffective weapons fire. "Wow." Lyra bounced in her seat, utterly enthralled. "This is just like the holobanes back home." Jack couldn't help but laugh. "Glad someone's enjoying the ride, kid." He glanced at Zara, who was looking decidedly greener than her usual cerulean hue. "You holding up okay there, Your Highness?" Zara managed a weak nod. "I'm beginning to think I may have been hasty in my choice of rescuer." "Hey, no take-backs now," Jack quipped, narrowly avoiding a collision with a tumbling asteroid the size of a small moon. "We're all in this together." As they emerged from the other side of the asteroid field, Jack allowed himself a moment of triumph. But the victory was short-lived. The warship, undeterred, came barreling through the debris, its powerful shields shrugging off impacts that would have obliterated Jack's tiny shuttle. "Okay, time for Plan B," Jack announced, his fingers flying over the nav computer. "And what, pray tell, is Plan B?" Zara asked, a hint of her royal imperiousness creeping back into her voice. Jack flashed her a roguish grin. "Something incredibly stupid and probably suicidal. So, just another Tuesday for me." Before Zara could protest, Jack threw the ship into a steep dive, aiming straight for the swirling atmosphere of a nearby gas giant. The shuttle bucked and shuddered as it plunged into the planet's upper layers, alarms screaming warnings about structural integrity and imminent disintegration. "Jack," Zara cried out, clutching Lyra close. "This is madness. We'll be crushed." "That's kind of the idea," Jack grunted, fighting the controls with every ounce of strength he possessed. "Just trust me." As they plummeted deeper into the gas giant's roiling storms, the Imperial warship hesitated at the planet's edge. Its commanders, it seemed, were unwilling to risk their valuable ship in such a reckless pursuit. Jack's eyes were glued to the depth gauge, watching the numbers tick higher and higher. Just when it seemed the shuttle would be torn apart by the immense pressures, he yanked back on the controls with all his might. The little ship groaned in protest but responded, pulling up in a gut-wrenching arc that sent them rocketing back towards the planet's upper atmosphere. As they burst free of the swirling gases, Jack let out a whoop of triumph. "Ha, take that, you overgrown tin cans," he crowed, watching the Imperial warship shrink to a distant speck on their sensors. Zora, looking shell-shocked but alive, fixed Jack with a penetrating stare. That was brilliant, heroic, dashingly handsome," Jack supplied helpfully. "Utterly insane," Zora finished, but there was a hint of admiration in her voice. "Where did you learn to fly like that?" Jack's cocky grin faltered for a moment. "Let's just say I've had some practice running from people who want me dead. It's a long story." Before Zora could press further, Lyra piped up. "Can we do that again?" Both adults turned to stare at the little girl, who was practically vibrating with excitement. After a moment of stunned silence, they burst into laughter. The kind of slightly hysterical, "we just cheated death" laughter that bonds people together like nothing else. As their mirth subsided, Jack plotted a new course. "All right, team. I know a place where we can lay low for a while. It's not exactly 5-star accommodations, but it's off the grid and about as far from the Empire as you can get without leaving the galaxy." Zora nodded, a newfound respect in her eyes. "Lead on, Jack. It seems I may have underestimated you." Jack winked. "Don't worry, Your Highness. I'm used to it. Now, he's up for some nutrient paste. I hear the grey flavor is particularly unappetizing today." As they limped towards their new destination, the little shuttle carrying its mismatched crew of fugitives, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Whatever forces were hunting Zora and Lyra, they weren't likely to give up easily. But looking at the regal alien princess and her precocious daughter, Jack knew he faced down the entire Imperial fleet if he had to. For the first time in years, he had someone, worth fighting for. And Jack was beginning to realize that maybe, just maybe, that's what he'd been searching for all along. Uncovering the truth. The battered shuttle touched down on a desolate moon, its surface a patchwork of rust-colored plains and jagged canyons. As the engines powered down, Jack turned to his passengers with a flourish. "Welcome to Novus Arcanum, ladies, the armpit of the galaxy and proud of it." Zora peered out the viewport skeptically. "This is our sanctuary." Jack grinned. "Don't let the charming view fool you. Novus Arcanum is a haven for outcasts, rebels, and anyone looking to disappear. Plus, they make a mean synthahole that'll knock you on your glowing blue behind." As they disembarked, Lyra bounced excitedly, her natural childlike curiosity overriding any fear. "Look, Mama, the ground sparkles." Indeed, the dusty surface glittered faintly in the light of the system's distant sun. Jack knelt, scooping up a handful of the shimmering particles. "Quantum dust," he explained, "interferes with most scanning technology. It's why this rock doesn't show up on any official star charts." Zora's eyes widened in understanding. Clever. No wonder the Empire hasn't found this place. They made their way towards a collection of mismatched structures that seemed to grow organically from the canyon walls. As they approached, a motley assortment of aliens emerged to greet them, species Jack had never seen before, even in his extensive travels. A towering figure with 4 arms and skin, like polished obsidian, stepped forward. "Jack, you old scoundrel," its voice boomed. "What trouble have you brought to our doorstep this time?" Jack clasped one of the alien's massive hands. "Grix, you beautiful monster. How's retirement treating you?" Grix's faceted eyes glinted with amusement. "Boring as sin. But that's about to change, isn't it? He turned his attention to Zara and Lyra, his expression softening. Welcome, friends. Any allies of Jack are allies of Novus Arcanum. As they were led into the settlement, Zara leaned close to Jack. You have some interesting friends, she murmured. Jack chuckled. Grix, he's a teddy bear. Well, a teddy bear that could rip a Star Destroyer in half with his bare hands. But he makes great pancakes. They were shown to a small but comfortable dwelling carved into the canyon wall. As Lyra explored their new surroundings with unbridled enthusiasm, Zara turned to Jack, her expression serious. I owe you an explanation, she began, about why we're running and why the Empire wants us so badly. Jack held up a hand. Hey, your business is your business. I'm just the chauffeur, remember? Zara shook her head. No, Jack, you've risked your life for us. You deserve to know the truth. She took a deep breath. It's about Lyra. She's special. Yeah, I figured that out when she started levitating rocks for fun during our little asteroid field adventure, Jack quipped. Zara's eyes widened in alarm. You saw that? Jack nodded. Relax, Your Highness. I'm good at keeping secrets, but I'm guessing that's why the Empire's so keen on getting their hands on her. It's more than that, Zara said softly. Lyra's abilities, they're unprecedented among our people. The Empire believes she's the key to unlocking some kind of ancient power. They would use her as a weapon. Jack's expression darkened. Over my dead body. Zara placed a hand on his arm, sending an unexpected jolt through him. There's more, Jack. It's not just Lyra they're after. It's you. All of you. All of who? Jack asked, confused. Humans, Zara explained. Your species possesses a unique genetic marker, one that allows for compatibility with cerulean abilities. The Empire believes that by combining human DNA with cerulean, they can create an army of super soldiers, unstoppable, psychic warriors loyal only to the Emperor. Jack let out a low whistle. Well, that's a lot to process, but it doesn't explain why you're running. Aren't you part of this Empire? Zara's eyes flashed with anger. I was, until I saw what they were willing to do. The experiments, the suffering. She shuddered. I couldn't let them do that to Lyra, or to countless innocent humans. Jack's mind reeled. He'd always known humans were considered something of a curiosity in the wider galaxy, but this was beyond anything he'd imagined. So, what's the plan? He asked, trying to sound more confident than he felt. We can't hide forever. Zara's expression turned determined. There's a resistance movement, small but growing. They believe they've found a way to neutralize cerulean abilities, to level the playing field. If we can get that technology to the right people, we might just save the galaxy, Jack finished. He ran a hand through his hair, chuckling ruefully. And here I thought I was done playing hero. Just then, Laura came bounding into the room, her eyes shining with excitement. Mama, Jack, come see, I made a friend. They followed her outside, where a small crowd had gathered. In the center stood Lyra, giggling as she manipulated a swirling vortex of quantum dust. The particles danced and shifted, forming intricate patterns in the air. The assembled aliens watched in awe, murmuring amongst themselves. Jack caught snippets of their conversations. Savior, chosen one, the prophecy fulfilled. He turned to Zara, eyebrow raised. I'm guessing this isn't normal, even for her. Zara shook her head, her expression a mixture of pride and fear. No, this is unprecedented. As they watched Lyra's impromptu light show, Jack felt a weight settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just about protecting a mother and child anymore. The fate of entire civilizations might rest on their next moves. Well, he said, forcing a grin, I'd always wanted to see the galaxy. Guess we're doing the grand tour after all. Zara squeezed his hand gratefully. Thank you, Jack. I know this isn't what you signed up for. Jack shrugged, trying to ignore the warmth spreading from where their hands touched. Hey, what's life without a little excitement? Besides, he added with a wink, Someone's got to keep you royal types from getting too full of yourselves. As night fell on Novus Arcanum, casting the canyons in deep shadows, Jack gazed up at the unfamiliar stars. Somewhere out there, a war was brewing. Empires would rise and fall, and the course of history would be forever altered. And somehow, improbably, he found himself right in the middle of it all. Jack chuckled to himself. If his old flight instructor could see him now. "What's so funny?" Zara asked, joining him at the viewport. Jack shook his head. "Just thinking about how life has a way of throwing you curveballs. One minute you're fixing air recyclers on a backwater station, the next you're on some grand quest to save the galaxy." Zara's expression softened. "Do you regret it, helping us?" Jack met her gaze, suddenly acutely aware of how close they were standing. "Not for a second, Your Highness." As they stood there, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them, Lyra's voice called out from inside. "Mama, Jack, come quick. I think I made the rocks float again." They shared a laugh, the moment broken. "Duty calls," Jack said with a mock salute. As they headed back inside to deal with whatever new wonder or catastrophe Lyra had conjured up, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of rightness. This bizarre, makeshift family might not have been what he expected, but it was exactly what he needed. The galaxy might be in peril, ancient powers might be awakening, and an entire empire might be hunting them. But in that moment, watching Zara sweep up a giggling Lyra as glittering rocks orbited around them, Jack knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. Let the Empire come. They had no idea what they were up against. The ultimate sacrifice. The caverns of Novus Arcanum echoed with the sound of urgent preparations. What had once been a haven for misfits and outcasts had transformed into a bustling rebel base practically overnight. Jack marveled at the change as he made his way through the crowded tunnels, dodging aliens of all shapes and sizes carrying weapons, supplies, and mysterious pieces of technology. "Watch it, Earthling," a tentacle being grumbled as Jack narrowly avoided a collision. "Sorry, calamari," Jack quipped, earning a glare from the alien's multiple eyes. He chuckled to himself. Even on the brink of interstellar war, he couldn't resist pushing buttons. He found Zara in what passed for a war room, a large cavern filled with holographic displays and chattering communication devices. The cerulean princess stood at the center, her regal bearing a stark contrast to the ramshackle surroundings. She was deep in conversation with Grix and a holographic projection of a scarred, reptilian alien Jack didn't recognize. "Cannot stress enough the importance of striking now," the hologram was saying, its forked tongue flicking nervously. "Our intelligence suggests the Empire is on the verge of a breakthrough. If they perfect the human cerulean hybrid technology." "I'm well aware of the stakes, Commander Slith," Zara interrupted, her tone sharp. "But we cannot rush into this half-prepared. The Resistance has risked everything to get us this far." Jack cleared his throat, announcing his presence. "Sorry to interrupt the party planning, but we've got a situation topside." All eyes turned to him. Zara's expression softened slightly, though worry still creased her brow. "What is it, Jack?" "Looks like our Imperial friends finally found us," Jack said, trying to keep his tone light despite the gravity of the situation. "Long-range sensors picked up a fleet entering the system. We've got maybe 2 hours before they're knocking on our door." A hush fell over the room. It was Grix who broke the silence, his rumbling voice filled with grim determination. "Then we have no choice. We must evacuate immediately." The holographic commander hissed in frustration. "Impossible. The weapon is not yet ready for transport. We need more time." Jack's ears perked up. "Weapon? What weapon?" Zara sighed, looking suddenly wary. "It's what we've been working towards all this time, Jack. A device capable of neutralizing cerulean abilities on a massive scale. If we can deploy it against the Empire's fleet, we could end this war before it truly begins," Grix finished. Jack let out a low whistle. No pressure or anything. "So what's the holdup?" The holographic commander's image flickered. The final calibration requires an enormous amount of power. We've been siphoning energy from the planet's core, but the process is delicate. A rush job could result in catastrophic failure. Jack's mind raced, an idea forming. It was risky, borderline suicidal, but then again, those were his favorite kinds of plans. What if we could buy you some time? Zora's eyes narrowed. Jack, what are you thinking? He flashed her his most roguish grin, something incredibly stupid and probably suicidal. So, just another Tuesday. Before anyone could object, Jack outlined his plan. It was audacious, relying on equal parts skill, advanced technology, and sheer dumb luck. As he spoke, he could see the mix of admiration and concern in Zora's eyes. It could work, Grix rumbled thoughtfully, but the risk is better than certain defeat, Jack finished. He turned to Zora, his expression uncharacteristically serious. What do you say, Your Highness? Ready to pull off one last crazy stunt? Zora hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Very well, but Jack, you should know. An alarm blared, cutting her off. A frantic voice came over the comm system. Multiple Imperial ships have entered the atmosphere. They're deploying ground forces. So much for 2 hours, Jack muttered. He locked eyes with Zora. Whatever you were going to say, it'll have to wait. Time to roll the dice. What followed was a blur of frantic activity. Jack found himself at the helm of a cobbled-together fighter, a fusion of various alien technologies that looked like it might shake apart at any moment. Zora insisted on joining him as co-pilot, despite his protests. I'm not staying behind while you risk your life, she said firmly. We're in this together, remember? As they prepare for takeoff, Laura came running up, her eyes wide with fear and excitement. Mama, Jack, where are you going? Zora knelt, pulling her daughter into a tight embrace. We have to go away for a little while, Starlight, but I promise we'll come back for you. Jack felt a lump form in his throat as he watched the tender moment. He knelt beside them, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder. Hey kiddo, I'm gonna need you to be brave, okay? Can you do that for me? Lyra nodded solemnly, then surprised Jack by throwing her arms around him in a fierce hug. Come back safe, she whispered. Count on it, Jack replied, trying to ignore the nagging voice in his head that warned this might be a promise he couldn't keep. As they boarded the fighter, Jack caught sight of Grix overseeing the evacuation. The massive alien gave him a sullen nod. May the stars guide you, Jack. And thank you. Jack saluted with mock formality. Don't get sentimental on me now, big guy. We've got the galaxy to save. The fighter's engines roared to life, and they shot out of the hidden hangar into the chaos above. The sky was filled with Imperial ships, their sleek forms a stark contrast to the patchwork rebel vessels rising to meet them. Ready for this? Jack called over the din of battle. Zora's hand found his, squeezing briefly. With you, always. Together, they plunged into the fray. Jack's piloting skills, honed by years of narrow escapes and reckless maneuvers, were put to the ultimate test. They weaved through the battlefield, drawing the attention of as many Imperial ships as possible. That's right, you glorified toasters, Jack muttered as another volley of enemy fire barely missed them. Follow the shiny thing. Who's a good mindless drone? Zora rolled her eyes, but there was a hint of a smile on her lips. You're enjoying this far too much. Hey, if we're going to go out, might as well go out with style, Jack replied. As they led the Imperial forces on a wild chase through Novus Arcanum's treacherous canyons, Jack kept one eye on the chrono. They needed to buy the rebels just a little more time to finish the weapon and evacuate. Suddenly, Zora gasped. Jack, look. He followed her gaze and felt his heart skip a beat. A massive Imperial dreadnought was descending through the atmosphere, its weapons already charging. Well, that's not good, Jack muttered. Before he could formulate a new plan, their fighter shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the console. We're hit, Zora cried. Jack struggled with the controls, but it was no use. They were going down and fast. As the ground rushed up to meet them, he turned to Zara, a lifetime of unspoken words passing between them in an instant. Zara, I. The world exploded in a cacophony of twisted metal and shattering glass. As consciousness faded, Jack's last thought was of Lyra's smile and the promise he'd made to return. The darkness claimed him, leaving the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. A new beginning. Consciousness returned to Jack in fragments, the acrid smell of burning circuitry, the distant rumble of explosions, and a persistent, irritating beeping. He groaned, forcing his eyes open to a world that refused to come into focus. About time you rejoined the land of the living, a familiar voice chided. Jack blinked, his vision finally clearing to reveal Zara's concerned face hovering above him. Her iridescent skin was smudged with soot, a small cut above one of her 4 eyes slowly oozing silvery blood. You look terrible, Jack croaked, managing a weak grin. Zara rolled all 4 of her eyes simultaneously, a sight that still fascinated Jack. Says the man who looks like he went 10 rounds with a Cronus beast. As Jack's senses fully returned, he realized they were in some kind of makeshift medical bay. The beeping came from a jury-rigged life support system that looked like it had been cobbled together from spare parts and wishful thinking. How? Jack began, wincing as he tried to sit up. Zara gently pushed him back down. Grix found us in the wreckage. You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days? Jack's eyes widened in alarm. The weapon, the evacuation. Successful, thanks to your insane diversion, Zara replied, a hint of pride in her voice. The rebels managed to deploy the device just as the Imperial dreadnought entered the atmosphere. It was spectacular. Jack raised an eyebrow. Define spectacular. Zara's lips quirked in a small smile. Imagine every cerulean-powered system on every Imperial ship suddenly shutting down. Shields, weapons, even basic life support, all gone in an instant. Bet that put a damper on their invasion plans. Jack chuckled, then immediately regretted it as pain lanced through his ribs. Indeed, Zara nodded. The Empire's forces were in complete disarray. It gave us the opening we needed to evacuate Novus Arcanum and scatter to safe houses across the galaxy. Jack frowned. Wait, if everyone evacuated, why are we still here? Zara's expression turned somber. You were too badly injured to move. Grix and I stayed behind with a small team to care for you and monitor Imperial movements. The weight of her words hit Jack like a ton of bricks. They'd risked everything, the resistance, the weapon, their own lives, for him. A washed-up human mechanic who'd spent years running from his past. Zara, he began, but she cut him off with a gentle finger to his lips. I know what you're going to say, Jack, that we shouldn't have taken the risk, that the mission was more important. Her eyes, all 4 of them, bore into his with an intensity that took his breath away. But you're wrong. You are the mission, Jack. You and every other human out there. Before Jack could respond, the door to the medical bay burst open. Lyra came bounding in, her silver hair flying behind her. Jack, you're awake, she cried, launching herself onto the bed and wrapping her small arms around him in a fierce hug. Jack winced at the impact, but returned the hug with equal fervor. Hey there, squirt. Miss me? Lyra pulled back, her young face a mixture of joy and indignation. You promised you'd come back safe. And I always keep my promises, don't I? Jack replied with a wink. Even if I'm a little late sometimes. As Lyra regaled him with tales of her own daring exploits during the evacuation, Jack caught Zora's eye of the girl's head. The cerulean princess wore an expression he'd never seen before, a softness, a vulnerability that made his heart skip a beat. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of Grix, his massive frame barely fitting through the doorway. Good to see you, vertical, old friend, the alien rumbled. We were starting to worry we have to leave you behind as a very talkative paperweight. Jack grinned. You know me, Grix. Too stubborn to die. The levity of the moment was short-lived. Grick's expression turned serious. I hate to break up the reunion, but we've got incoming. A lot of incoming. Zara was on her feet in an instant. Imperial reinforcements. Grix shook his massive head. Worse, it's the Empress herself. A hush fell over the room. Even Lyra, usually bursting with energy, grew still. Well, Jack said, forcing himself to sit up despite the pain. I guess it was too much to hope they'd just send a strongly worded letter. Zara turned to him, her royal bearing fully in place. Jack, you're in no condition to. To what? He interrupted. Run? Hide? In case you haven't noticed, Your Highness, that's not really my style. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, gritting his teeth against the wave of dizziness that threatened to overwhelm him. Besides, I've got a bone to pick with her royal glowiness about trying to turn my species into her personal army of mind-controlled sock puppets. Grix let out a booming laugh. Now that's the Jack I remember. I was worried that Crash had knocked some sense into you. As they hurried to prepare their meager defenses, Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of rightness. This ragtag group of aliens and outcasts had become more than just allies. They were family. He caught Zora's eye as she helped him into a makeshift exosuit, its systems whirring to life and supporting his battered body. Hey, Your Highness, he said softly, in case we don't make it out of this. Zora silenced him with a look that sent shivers down his spine. We will, Jack. We have to. Her hand found his, squeezing gently. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said a long time ago. Before she could continue, alarms blared throughout the base. Grix's voice boomed over the comm system. They're here. All hands to battle stations. Jack and Zara shared one last loaded glance before hurrying to join the others. As they emerged from the underground base onto the barren surface of Novus Arcanum, Jack's jaw dropped. The sky was filled with Imperial ships, their sleek forms blotting out the stars. At the center of the armada hovered a vessel unlike anything Jack had ever seen, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. I'm guessing that's our new pen pal, Jack quipped, gesturing to the imposing ship. Zara nodded grimly. The Empress's personal flagship, the Celestial Throne. It's said to be powered by the very essence of our homeworld. As if on cue, a beam of shimmering energy lanced out from the crystalline ship, carving a deep furrow in the planet's surface, mere meters from where they stood. Well, Jack said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, I guess subtle negotiations are off the table. Lyra tugged at his sleeve, her young face set in determination. What do we do now, Jack? Jack looked around at the small group gathered with him, Zara, her regal bearing undiminished even in the face of overwhelming odds. Grix, a mountain of alien muscle ready to take on an entire empire, and little Lyra, whose impossible powers might just be the key to saving them all. He grinned, the familiar rush of adrenaline coursing through him. What we always do, kid. Something incredibly stupid and probably suicidal. As the Imperial forces descended upon them, Jack felt a strange sense of calm. Whatever happened next, he knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. The fate of two species, human and cerulean, hung in the balance. And somehow, improbably, he found himself at the center of it all. All right, team, he called out, his voice carrying over the din of approaching ships. Let's show her royal glowiness what happens when you mess with the rejects and outcasts of the galaxy. With a rebel yell that echoed across the barren landscape of Novus Arcanum, they charged forward to meet their destiny, a most unlikely family, united in their determination to forge a new future for all species across the stars. The final battle for the fate of the galaxy had begun, and Jack couldn't help but think that win or lose, it was going to be one hell of a ride.